Okay, this is a report on uh, this locker room banner. Problem with Donald Trump. Donald Trump's numbers are way down. What is he, 20? Some polls had, well, one said 11. I heard a couple on Fox that said 4. And then I think CBS had one down 4. I can't tell whether any post-debate, pre-debate. They said they were all, one of them said it was a pre-debate poll. But anyway, this locker room banter report that's come out, it has to do with show Days of Our Lives or Access Hollywood. I heard one report that said NBC had possession of the report. And anyway, basically it's hurt his numbers real bad. It has to do with what he called locker room banter, where he was talking real crude about women. 10 years ago, a long time ago, before he even thought about being president. Well, to me, I look at this whole thing, and first of all, a little bit of history. You know, I mean, we have a whole bunch of corruption in the country. I mean, everybody's aware of that. Most people look at YouTube are aware of it. You know, the 1% problem. They have total control over the government. They've taken our sovereignty. I mean, basically, like I say, Declaration of Independence says all men are created equal, which implies one man, one vote. The Constitution says popular sovereignty, which implies one man, one vote. We don't have our one man, one vote anymore. A campaign is full of corruption, campaign money. The 1% controls the government, got a stronghold on it. Well, Ross Perot came along in 1992 election and got run three reports on primetime TV talking about the corruption. And he almost won. Well, the 1% came along and knocked him out of the debate. Put a 15% rule in. A whole bunch of corporations band together, shut him out. So they knocked him off, essentially. Well, then we had Bernie Sanders. Well, they came along, gave the DNC a bunch of campaign money, and knocked Sanders off. So he's gone. So, and the other one, John McCain, had put a McCain-Feingold law in. Of course, he lost, and that had a lot to do with the local networks and the buyout of all the local networks and everything. And there seemed to be a bias against McCain, too. I know there was with our local channel. Anyway, so they knocked McCain off. Well, here we've got Donald Trump, who uses his own campaign money. He's talking about a rigged political system. He's talking about Justice Roberts being a disaster, and he's the one that put the Citizens United case. That's the reason we have it, him and Alito. And he talked about Roberts being a disaster, and he's talking about using his own campaign money and trying to cut into corruption with the wall, you know, to stop the illegal aliens, and also the open border problem, which has to do with corruption. It's corruption that keeps the borders open, essentially. That's why you can't protect them. And also the TPP, the GATT, and all these laws were put through by corporate America. They help the 1%, and they to the detriment of everyone else. And anyway, so now they're trying to knock him off. Well, here's the thing. I mean, think about it a second. Basically, you were talking the other night in the debate. They said something about an elephant in the living room. Well, they're talking about Trump's problem with the the locker room banner tape that's giving him a lot of trouble. You know, Republicans not supporting him and all this. Anyway, what they should have said was, it's not an elephant in the living room, it's a snake, it's a rattlesnake in the living room. There's a skunk in the woodpile with this whole report. By a skunk in the woodpile, what I mean, you know that something doesn't smell right. You don't know exactly what it is. And you can't exactly prove all of it, but I'd come pretty close. So anyway, something doesn't smell right. We got a skunk in the woodpile, and another way to say it is a snake in the living room. So you have a rattlesnake in your living room, so you call someone to get rid of it. And he tries to get rid of it, and he gets bit. Well, and then he complains, well, I tried to get rid of the rattlesnake, but the damn thing bit me. And, well, most people sit there and say, well, no kidding. It's a rattlesnake. What'd you expect? You know, I mean, you grab it, it's going to bite you. Well, here it's the same thing. This is what we have with Donald Trump. He's in there, he's trying to stop corruption, and the 1% are pretty mean and nasty, and they're going to do everything they can to keep him out. and they're like a rattlesnake. And what have they done with this locker room banter report? They just bit him, essentially. And so you figure, like, no kidding. But most people would think if the snake bit the guy, that maybe it's more important to get it out than it was the first time. So it's definitely a problem we got. So why don't they look at it this way with Trump? Why are so many people that just don't quite get that? That the problem is the fact that they brought out this report on Trump is all the more reason we need to put Trump in to get rid of the rattlesnake in the living room, which is the 1% and their stronghold over the government. And the 1% is put that report in there. They were solely responsible for that report, and they put it in for one reason and one reason only: to keep their stronghold over the government and to keep our away from our sovereignty and our one man, one vote. So they have all the votes, we have no vote. That's the reason that report came out. Most people would figure out, hey, that's the reason we need to put Trump in. But there's a whole lot of people that just don't quite get that. It goes over their head. And you wonder, how in the world? You know, you could get right in their face and explain it to them, and they still don't get it. You know, so why is his numbers going down? That just doesn't make sense at all. And the other thing, Ross Perot had the same problem. I mean, he tried to get in there, and the first thing they did, they blocked him. They tried, let's see, what was it? They ran a campaign, said he was paranoid. So he'd take all your sovereignty. He said not only would you not vote for him, but you wouldn't believe anything he said. And that worked. And you think, well, you think these people do have success. Anytime you listen to a negative smear campaign, you are giving the 1% more power, and you are giving yourself, the 99%, less power. It's just like a used car dealer when he sees you coming with a smile on your face, and glue, screws, and tattoos and buttafuoco's. It's the same thing, and robs you up one side and down the other. And that's what's happening here. The minute you fall for a smear tactic, and then the other thing I was going to say, it was the cable, what is it, the cable TV, Comcast, Warner something, Time Warner. They are the own NBC. There was one report that came out on CNN that said that they had possession of this locker room banner tape on Trump. So and they are one of the top 10 supporters of Hillary Clinton campaign, top 10 donators. So you know they're part of the 1%, and they know Hillary's in bed with corruption, and she's the one they want in to do everything to keep campaign finance reform out and to keep their stronghold. Well, they know Trump's the one that is adversarial to them, has his own campaign money, and speaks out against them. So they are the, now whether it's Time Warner that dropped this shoe, as they say, I can't prove. I can't really prove that, but I think Time Warner, I know they own CNN, and look how biased CNN was. Constantly biased. I mean, and how long they ran the report, how they exaggerated it for the last several days. I mean, and every report they make is against Trump. And they are owned by Time Warner. I know that for a fact. They were one of the major donators to the Hillary Clinton campaign. So basically it proves the skunk in the woodpile is the Time Warner Corporation, more than likely. And so why people fall for it is hard to understand. Also, I want to point out too that how vulnerable people are to negative ads. Every time you listen to a negative ad, when it comes, and Hillary Clinton has 1.5 times the campaign money she got from the 1% that Trump has. That's why her numbers, look at her numbers. I mean, Trump was 4 points away just last, according to Fox News and CBS, I think said, but she has 1.5 times the campaign money from the 1% that Trump has. And the campaign, anytime you listen to native campaigns, it makes that stronger. It makes the corruption stronger. So you're hurting yourself and you're helping the 1% who are your adversaries and the troublemakers. And and if you don't believe negative campaigning works, just look at the Bill Maher and Kellyanne Conway debate that was on Bill Maher's show when Bill Maher came out and said that Donald Trump supported the Iraq War. Okay, because the media's been reporting this constantly because they don't want to admit that Trump's smarter than Hillary. They don't with that war, and he's more practical. And then he knew that it was wrong to get into it. Well, all they had was a tape of him on a Larry, what's his name, Howard Stern show, and all it said he was This was at the onset of the war, and he said he supported, or he sort of supported, but he sounded ambivalent when you heard him talk. Well, apparently he was against it because he said that he thought the trade center had nothing to do with, so he was ambivalent anyway. Because he said he believed the trade center had nothing to do with Saddam Hussein and didn't support it. Well, usually people are, but this is what the media is not smart enough to get. Usually people are either dogmatic or pragmatic when it comes to wars. They were either with Bush, so they hate the Dixie Chicks, they support the war 100%, and that's exactly what happened with Hillary. She supported the war all the way to the end, according to Sanders. And so, why, Bill Maher, apparently, why couldn't he figure this out himself? I mean, if Trump had been dogmatic, he wouldn't have made an argument against it. He never would have had an argument against it. They can't tell you what's wrong with it, the ones that support it, and Bill Maher should have been smart enough to see that. And instead he fell for what the media said, and so and here he's pretty smart, and that the media got to him. It just shows how powerful that media is, and their lying and their negative campaigning, and how it works against the public, and how it helps their cause, and why they keep knocking off everyone we have to try to get our sovereignty back. They knock them right off. Another thing, on the debate the other night, the comments I'd like to make on that. Well, they said that most of the corporate media keeps coming out and saying Hillary won it, but and that the general public thinks Hillary won. Well, I think actually Trump won it, and in several ways, but. He pointed out, he attacked Anderson Cooper. He said, well, you're being unfair because you just gave Hillary, you let her talk overtime 2 minutes. 2 or 3 minutes, and you won't let me talk over 10 seconds, which I noticed that. I also noticed that whenever they yelled for Trump, Anderson Cooper told him to shut up, and every time they yelled for Hillary, he let him yell. Well, of course he had a real butt ugly bias, and he works for Time Warner, and if you watch CNN, they constantly have a bias, and they're major Hillary supporters. Well, why didn't Trump come in and point out that the reason that he's doing that is because he works for Time Warner and they're bed with corruption, so he's basically against society, and the media having a corporation own them is an ugly conflict of interest, and really it turns the media into TV Moscow. And there are points, he should have brought out, like with epinephrine, this drug, where it's a life or death drug, and the cost went up 400%. And the reason that it has to do with campaign finance corruption and the pharmaceutical lobby, and how they seize up Congress. Well, you notice that Time Warner won't bring this out. And the Disney Channel, or ABC won't bring it out. None of them do. The Via Communists, none of them. They'll bring it out. So that's a serious problem with society. Why did he bring out that Anderson Cooper is a part of this problem? He's a player in it. And also bring out the fact that the one who gave the media to 1% to sign that first bill was Bill Clinton. And the reason and his motive for signing it was to protect the Democrat Party from the independents and stop the independent movement, who were trying to stop the corruption. He was trying to protect the Democrat Party from votes for the independent group. That's why he gave the media to the 1% and signed a bill. And when Hillary's going to do the same thing, if she's in bed with the Clinton Foundation, the corruption, the campaign money, and all that, there's no reason to believe she's going to be any different than Bill. No one can make a case that way. I know that. So, I mean, Trump should have brought all this out at the time, instead of just stopping short and saying Anderson Cooper wasn't fair. There's a whole lot more to the story than that. The other thing, let's see, you had the point that's about the GATT and NAFTA and the TPP support, where the WikiLeaks brought out a report where Hillary said, well, sometimes you have to tell the public one thing and do another. And she said, well, I'm just doing what Abraham Lincoln did. Well, she committed fraud 3 times. Bill Clinton vetoed a bill which lowered the rate where you could file bankruptcy, made it higher. Yeah, I made it higher. The bottom rate where you could file bankruptcy, made it lower. Yeah, that's what it was. And then Bill Clinton vetoed it. Well, Hillary came out and said she supported Bill's veto. Well, that was a lie, because when she was in the Senate in New York, she voted with the credit card companies and the credit card lobby, which is one of the most powerful lobbies in the country. Credit card lobby gives more money, campaign money, anything else, and Hillary voted with the credit card. So she lied. She committed fraud, essentially. She committed a fraud to the public. Well, that's not what Lincoln did. Abraham Lincoln had noble causes like freeing the slaves, for example, or he probably had to lie sometimes because the majority supported it. But freeing the slaves, no one's going to argue that that's not a noble cause. But supporting credit card companies when people are starving and can't pay their bills, that's not a noble cause. And then she reduced wages. Jill Stein brought out she reduced wages from 60 cents an hour to 40 cents an hour when she was Secretary of State. She reduced wages in Haiti. And then brought out that she supports families. Well, that was another fraud. Lincoln never committed a fraud like that, and I think Trump handled that pretty well. I mean, I think he drove the point home pretty good. And she supports, an open border policy. Well, the trouble with the open border policy, it drives wages down. It drives the number of jobs. The Spanish people in this country that are already here are going to have more money and they'll help their families more with the closed border, at least if they close it up partly the way Trump wants to. And Pence brought this out in the vice presidential debate. That was the main point, I thought, where Pence really, where he talked about Donald Trump's ability to increase the standard of living, increase the amount of wealth in the country, the bottom to the top. And, like say, 2 tallest buildings in the world, which reflected the amount of wealth the country has, and get our ratio of imports and exports with China back, and get out of the WTO, and quit getting campaign money from China so we can get tariffs on trade against China, start a trade war with China so we get a fair trade balance. That means more jobs. That means more people paying taxes. That means fewer jobs going overseas, more people working, and more people paying taxes for that money. Better ratio of imports, more exports, less imports. That means more money all the way to the top to the bottom. That means we balance the budget. All those things. And Trump is far better at doing that than anything Hillary brought up. All she brought up was something about free, clear, clean energy or something, jobs at that, which might do something, but she hasn't made her point. She hasn't gone into it far enough. But I don't think the biggest thing that's caused our loss of our standard of living going down has been these trade deals. That's the biggest thing in our trade balance with other countries, and Trump is pretty gung ho, and he has his own campaign money, and he was opposed to NAFTA, and she said she thought she was proud of NAFTA. She made that statement in the first debate, so she's the wrong one to put in as far as getting our standard of living up. Okay. But I think Trump drove that home pretty good in the second debate, and he should have won it for that reason. And then the foreign policy, I don't know enough about foreign policy. I didn't see that part of it. But I thought he did pretty well on that too, as far as I could tell. But anyway, the main thing is, the main point I'm making with this whole thing is it shows how effective negative campaigning is and how effective the 1% is at convincing you to give up your sovereignty and vote for the wrong candidate and put the one they want in there and the one that's in bed with them. And they've done it. They knocked off Perot, they knocked off Sanders, and now they're trying to knock off Trump. And if you want to put up with 4 more years, 8 more years of corruption, and corruption getting worse and worse and worse, your standard of living probably not improving much, only moderately, or do you want to get rid of the corruption and have it go back up to what it was in 1958? But people, I guess they can vote for who they want, but they're shooting themselves in the foot. And I think that's everything I was going to say. Thanks for watching.